That's okay. Thank you for that. Francesca, would you like to go next? Is you're another new candidate?
Yeah, of course. You can call me Frankie. I'm standing as an independent with the Save Our Beeston Holbeck party. I don't live in the ward, but I work in the ward in Beeston, and I've always tried to be very honest as to why I want to stand in this ward and why I want to stand as a councillor. Partly that I think politics is broken. I don't think you necessarily get a yes or a no answer like you deserve, not just with Labour, with parties across the board. And for those that don't know about why I want to stand and why I feel so passionately, is that I'm actually connected to the Ruth Gores Academy. And while it's not in this ward, we have around 120 students that live or in Beeston or Holbeck that have to walk through the managed approach. And I sat and I cried with them while they talked about being solicited in school uniform, seeing their 5-year-old siblings pick up used condoms, needles, the fact that they're not allowed to go out and play in their street and have a childhood. And as far as I'm concerned, that is completely and utterly unacceptable. And I don't believe any child should be robbed of their childhood in that way. And I've been very clear in my message that as far as I'm concerned, the managed approach has to end, and we have to devise an exit strategy that has to work for everyone, and that involves all the community and not just individuals that kind of follow the party line on that. I also know that there are many, many other problems in Beeston, Cottingley and Holbeck, and that everyone has their own issues like litter and fly tipping, along with the traveller camps at the moment. And again, just like Becky, I don't have all the answers, and I really want to work with the community on it. But hopefully my strong message around what's happening in Holbeck shows how passionate I am about that community and giving it a voice when at the moment I believe it's been actively suppressed by those that are meant to represent that community.
Okay, thank you, Francesca. Go ahead. I think you're the only other candidate that's here, so would you like to take your turn?
Thank you, Christine, and may I take this opportunity to thank South Leeds Life for giving us an opportunity to speak to our residents and whatever you. I believe in democracy, and I think it's great to have such sort of debates and discourses where people might have difference of opinion and whatever you, but sometimes we have to agree to disagree with each other, but move forward together as a community. My name is Goa Almas. I'm your candidate for the Labour and Cooperative Party this year. I feel really privileged, to be a councillor for the past 3 years now. I was elected in 2018 with my new fellow councillor Andrew Scopes, and also my very experienced part of my team, Angela Gabriel, who served the ward for the past nearly 25 years, and also our very experienced MP Hilary Benn. So we're a strong team, and I believe in teamwork, and I believe in working together for the community that I live in. I mean, I've lived here since 2008 when I got married. I've got 3 girls, 12, 9, and 4 years of age. They all go to the local schools. We all use the local facilities and amenities. I am part of Beeston, and and Beeston is part of me. In terms of my family background, I come from a family of soldiers who are very proud of their background in terms of defending our country, our Great Britain. And there's a lot of people who've given a lot of sacrifices over the year, to make this country the great country it is, and also for our democracy. So I really appreciate, taking part in democracy, because our forefathers have given a lot of sacrifice and blood, to have this democracy. In terms of the issues, I think there's no issues that we cannot tackle together. I think there's 2 things that are very important: the willingness to do something and the skills of doing things. I think I'm willing, and I always have the will to do things for our community where I live. I am well known to my community, to my street, to my neighborhood, and so on. And in terms of the work, it's an ongoing thing, and whether it be all the way from bin collections and missed bins to if you like, repairing roads and stuff like that. So some people, these all little things might, sound trivial, but for others, this can mean really important, whether it be housing, whether it be education, getting people's kids in their schools and stuff like that, building the infrastructure, also to improve our neighborhood and whatever in terms of, for example, the local campaigns and stuff like that. And we're working together as a team, working with that. And also to make our community a safer and cleaner and happier and more proud community that we live in terms of COVID has really changed our lives. I'm sorry, I'm taking a bit of time, but honestly, it's affected me a lot. I mean, in December, I was really down, and I was on drugs and whatever in terms of medication and whatever taking medications, to tackle that. So lots of people have been in that kind of situation where you were under a lot of pressure in bereavements and stuff like that. And I'm really glad that as a community, we have pulled together, and lots of community heroes have sort of emerged. Our local community heroes who've done a lot in terms of, helping their neighbors, supporting their neighbors and so on. So that neighborly, I think, friendship and neighborly kindness and compassion is very important in our community. So as a community, I think I'm lucky to live in Beeston, where I live. I'm very proud to live in, and I'm very thankful to everybody and privileged who gave me the opportunity to be elected as their councillor. And I hope, given the opportunity, I'll continue to serve my people as a servant, trying to resolve the issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Goha. Okay, we're going to start with one question that's quite provocative. I will again ask you if you have any follow-up questions to this to put them in the chat and not to unmute yourselves and call out. What we've asked people to do is sending questions relevant to all of the candidates, and not just one. So every question that we ask is requiring an answer from all of you, if that's okay. So it is the managed approach we're going to go with first, and this question comes in 3 parts. So I think, Francesca, is it okay if you go first on this one, because this is your main passion? So it's in the chat as well. We'll be posting the questions in the chat so that you can see what's coming up next and you have a bit of time to think about it. So Francesca, the managed approach, part 1 is, do you feel it works? Do you feel it encourages vulnerable females into this dangerous type of work? And if you were elected, what would you change?
Of course. I think obviously it's quite obvious. Do I think it works? No, I don't. Not at all. I think in theory, what they wanted to do at the start, as a trial, is if that's what they wanted to do, that's fine. But I think they have to hold their hands up and accept that it's not working anymore. I think when you know that over 4,000 used condoms are being picked up in a 6-month period on residential streets, that it's not working anymore. When school kids are being solicited in school uniform, it's not working anymore. When 17-year-old young girls with learning difficulties are abducted and raped, it's not working anymore. So no, I don't think it's working. Do I feel like it encourages vulnerable females into dangerous work? I certainly feel like it encourages punters to come in from hundreds of miles away and buy these women, and therefore that potentially women are pushed in by their pimps to work in this area. I've been speaking very closely to an ex-prostitute called Natasha, who has helped me to put plans together, and is very honest that the managed approach isn't working, that actually it's facilitating women to continue to work in this, and that charities like Bases are actually facilitating them rather than helping them get out. She is one that is setting up her own charity, miles and miles and miles away, because she knows that women cannot stay in this area to break that cycle, and it will take years. And I think that we have to accept that the vulnerable women potentially aren't being supported in the way that they need to be. Bases get a hell of a lot of money, and it's actually quite profitable to keep these women where they are. If I'm elected, what would I change? Obviously, I would want to try and get people around a table to devise an exit strategy. I don't know if people think that we're maybe too far gone for a decent exit strategy, but I think that's what we've got to do. I think we've got to take into account safeguarding of children, which the independent report failed to do. and that we need to get a plan in place that we can at least start that ball rolling. Because if you talk to the community of Holbeck, they don't want that on their doorstep at all. I don't think you will find nearly anyone in Holbeck that is for that managed approach. And why are we keeping something in a community that is so against it? We're actually keeping that community suppressed. So obviously my message is that it has to end, and that we have to devise an exit strategy that will actually make sure that it ends in a safe way. You know, I always liken it to us pulling out of Iraq and the rise of ISIL, that we have to find something and not just suddenly shut it down one day. But I think we've got to get people around a table, and we've got to get people talking and devise that strategy.
Thank you. Goha, would you like to go next? I'll just repeat the questions. So the managed approach, do you feel it works? Do you feel it encourages vulnerable females into dangerous work? And if elected, what would you change?
Thank you, Christine, and thank you, Frankie, for your contribution about the managed approach. I think it's a very serious issue, one that needs, I think we need a lot more time, because we have invested a lot of time in this. Right from the word go, I can see some friendly faces here in the chat who actually were with me right from the word go, before even I was elected. Managed approach existed before I was elected, or Andrew was elected. Now, the approach was there, and also some of the things that we've done together. I took some members of the community with me to the police, you know, to initiate some of the stuff that happened later on in terms of setting up groups and so on to deal with this issue. Now, the clue is in the name, managed approach. Now, if the area is managed properly, you know, we wouldn't have the issues. However, you know, when sometimes people play politics on it, it really hurts me, because we have invested a lot of time and efforts and with a lot of passion ever since I was elected. In fact, one of the reasons why I became a councillor was, you know, to deal with the issues facing the managed approach and so on. Now, in terms of the area and in terms of the geography and all that, those who are from Holbeck clearly know this is not something new. Leeds City Council or the police or Safer Leeds didn't bring this issue to Holbeck. The issue already existed in Holbeck. And also, in terms of some of the debates and some of the questions that we're talking about are actually on a national level. You know, we need some clear strategy in terms of street prostitution when it comes to, and it's a very sensitive subject. I mean, being a father of 3 girls, I mean, when I'm looking at the residents, I can understand the frustrations, and I can really empathize with some of the sentiments, you know, and some of the stories I've heard firsthand. I don't know whether some of my, you know, colleagues who are from the other party have attended any of the listening well, if you like, sessions or before that. I have heard all the accounts, firsthand accounts of people, you know, families, people and so on, what they've gone through, what it means, you know, to open up your window and see something happening graphically, you know, outside your garden and whatever. So I totally understand that. And especially being a father of 3 girls, I understand that. On the other hand, we also need to understand that some of these women who are working there, nobody, you know, becomes a prostitute by choice. It's not something that you do by choice. And also we have to have fine balance in terms of making sure that we are safeguarding the interests of our residents. But at the same token, you know, on the other side, we've got human beings as well as to look after. I mean, along with, in terms of when you become a councillor or when you're in that kind of position, you know, you have to be responsible. So when you're responsible for your area, you look at all the angles, you know, holistically, rather than, you know, looking at a few things with a tunnel vision. And let me just say something which some people might not like. My role as a councillor is to resolve the issues. Whereas with some of our political opponents, I'm sorry to say, they would like to see issues within our resolutions. And that's the problem, you know, we are trying to get as many solutions and trying to make sure that this managed approach does work for the area. Because at the end of the day, talking to residents and all that, I mean, I'm out and about every day, and talking to residents, most of the residents wouldn't have any issues with the managed approach as long as it doesn't affect their daily life. So if it's contained within that area, within the industrial estate, people wouldn't have that problem and so on. But moving on, we've listened to the people. The Listening Well campaign was supported by most of the people, and I see some of the friendly faces, here who attended those Listening Well campaigns. It was ourselves who initiated the Listening Well campaign. It was ourselves who initiated the independent review, and we were behind that 100%. By the public. When people wanted an independent review to happen, we supported them 100%. We went and listened to them, and some people who hosted these events and whatever if you like, are witness to that we listen to the people over all the Listening Well events and so on. After that, the review was published and so on. Nothing is perfect, but in terms of the review, if you like, this was a study of the whole area, and an independent review which people wanted was presented back to the people. So yes, at the moment we're still, continuing to listen to the people after the review. We want this managed approach, if you like, to work. Look what happened, ever since the COVID, ever since COVID, the managed zone, if you like, was suspended, but we still have issues. So if you like, getting rid of managed approach, which is a demand by some people, is not a solution. The solution is quite complex to that in terms of dealing with the whole issue. So if I am re-elected again, I will make sure that I put my 100% efforts, in terms of dealing with the situation, in terms of making sure that we are listening to the people, and the biggest stakeholders are the residents, are the businesses, are the people who are working in the managed zone, but not only listening to them, and also the police and Leeds City Council and all the rest of it, but working together as partners to make sure that we resolve these issues together and make sure that that managed approach actually does work. And if it works, I don't think there will be any issues for the residents and so on. And also, it's an ever-changing situation. So geographically, at the moment, things are where they are. But the whole thing is under, if you like, the whole thing is under observation, under review, and people are looking at it constantly in terms of after the independent report was submitted. So don't think that we're not investing time and efforts into listening to people and making the managed approach work. Thank you.
Thank you, Goha. Rebecca, you can have quite a bit of time on this if you need it, so don't worry about that. I'll remind you of the questions again. So the managed approach, do you feel it works? Do you feel it encourages vulnerable females into dangerous work? And if you were elected, what would you change about it?
Thank you. Well, when the managed approach was first introduced, like most of the residents of Beeston and Holbeck, I was totally against it. I thought it was a bad idea. I still do in principle. Time has gone on, and I don't feel it works in its current format. I don't think it's been managed properly. I think there's been a lack of communication between all the affected parties associated with the zone. I've had relatives who've worked for Safer Leeds that have part of their job is to spend time within the managed zone as sort of like a presence to keep girls safe. The girls in the zone don't want that because it turns punters off because they think they've got police or they're being watched. So there's a lot of issues around it. I don't necessarily feel like it encourages vulnerable females into dangerous work, because I know from being a teenager and hanging around in Holbeck, prostitution has always been an issue there. But I do think it's enabling them. It's enabling them to stay in that lifestyle of which along with that usually associates drug abuse, domestic violence. So there's a I think it was touched upon before by someone else about, I've also heard similar things about the charities involved where they're facilitating. I think it all needs to be looked at, and if I were elected, one of the things that I would look to put into place is to form a panel of local residents, business owners, people that work with the Safer Leeds, the councillors and the local police force, and I'd look for them to form a sort of committee. I think the rules need reviewing. I don't think they're being enforced properly, or that a lot of the rules are redundant and they don't really work anyway. I think it needs for people to sit down and stop bashing heads about it and actually come to some kind of resolution for everybody. So yeah, that's my thoughts and feelings on the managed approach.
Thank you, Rebecca. Right, we're going to a lighter question, maybe. So Leeds City Council are building a super cycleway from Elland Road Park and Ride to Leeds City Centre. As the aim is to get people to travel on the bus, provided do candidates consider its construction a good value for taxpayers' money? Rebecca, can we go to you first, then go ahead, then Francesca this time?
Sorry, I was just reading the question.
Okay. I think Laura's asking, is the super cycleway from Ellen Road Park and Ride opposite the police station to the city centre a good value for our taxpayers' money?
I'd only consider it to be good value if it actually works. I do think we need to be looking at bus travel around the whole of Leeds. I think it's too expensive as it currently stands. But yeah, I can't comment on whether the value is good until it's completed and we actually see in 6 to 12 months time what the situation is, what we're looking at, are people using it. If it isn't good value, then the people that made the decisions on that should be held to account for it.
Thank you. Francesca, I'll repeat the question again. That's right. So Leeds City Council are building a super cycleway from Ellen Road Park and Ride to Leeds City Centre, as the aim is to get people to travel on the bus, provided do candidates consider its construction good value for taxpayers' money?
Obviously, I've been out and about and I've seen some of the cycle lanes that have been built, and I don't believe that they are, on the whole, a good value for money. I mean, there are certain roads where the cycle lanes are wider than the car, and they've yet to have signs up. And I was nearly involved in a head-on collision because they've made it into a one-way street. So I think at this moment in time, it's a bad value for money. And I think a bit like what Becky said, I think buses on the whole is quite expensive as well. And I think if you are asking individuals to pay and then biking and everything else, I think the expense is quite large. And I think that, as you know, the cycle lane goes all the way to Murfield. So if we're building a cycle lane all the way to Murfield, why are we then encourage them to get the bus and everything else? It just seems very mixed messages at this moment in time. And I think some clarity around that would certainly help, whether we can get value for money in that way.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Christine. I think we have to look at this issue. I mean, being a car driver myself, and my wife drives a car as well, so I totally understand exactly where people are coming from. But this initiative isn't a Leeds City Council initiative. This is a national initiative. In fact, £2 billion of the national taxpayer money was announced by the Department of Transport and Office for Zero Carbon Emission and so on. So they actually released £2 billion nationally, and we're not the only city who's actually sort of investing that money. So it was a separate pot of fund that came specifically to deal with bicycles and all that. I mean, there was a lot of money being spent in London, in Manchester, and all the big cities, Birmingham and so on. So lots of cities at the moment are undergoing a lot of these changes. However, at the same token, what we need to appreciate is to hit our, if you like, net zero carbon emission and so on, we have to do more things. And part of that, whether we plant more trees and so on, is also in terms of, encouraging more and more people to use bikes and so on. However, I take the point, which is a very valid point made both by Frankie and Becky there. I think, the bus transport system is the cry of the day for our area, for our city. And that's what one of our candidates, the candidate for the mayor of West Yorkshire, Tracy Brabin, is very passionate about, is to make sure that she invests that money after the devolution, all that money coming from London over to West Yorkshire, to spend that money, wisely and locally. And part of that would be to invest in our public transport system. I think at the moment, I totally agree, because at the end of the day, I've traveled on buses, whether it be number one bus or, taking a bus from Dewsbury Road down to town and so on. And the buses are not as frequent, and we have issues with them. And I totally agree, they're very expensive as well. So, and believe it or not, part of their profits actually that they make from Leeds they don't invest that profit in Leeds. If you remember when we had the big session in Cottingley, Christine, you were there as well. Part of that money actually goes elsewhere out of the country because they're making a lot of profit here. So I leave it with, and I trust, the mayor of West Yorkshire, who would be, whoever it is, I'd like it to be Tracy Brabin, but whoever becomes the West Yorkshire mayor, they would be, investing, and they would be, investing more and more money into our transport system, because we do need good public transport connectivity into the city centre. Thank you,
Goha. A nice sneaky little plug for the mayor there. Rebecca, feel free to plug yours at any question at any point. Okay, next question. I think we'll go Goha first, Francesca, and then Rebecca. This should be a really quick answer. Goha. Okay, so if elected, will you put the needs and well-being of the community first, or follow your party manifesto, even if these do not match the community's needs?
That's a very good question. I always have, at the end of the day, I say to people, and I say to some of my colleagues as well, I was elected by the people. They put their confidence in me as an elected representative. I'm responsible to our residents. But at the same token, as a councillor, my job is to bridge between our residents and the council, and also from council to the residents. So yes, I will always be listening to the residents and the interest of the residents. It's not just residents, as per se. I am one of the residents myself, so my interests are exactly the same as anybody else living in Beeston Holbeck and Cottingley. So I will be listening to people. I'll be standing with them like we have in terms of various campaigns and all that, and I'll support my my people, my residents, my neighbours.
Thank you. Francesca.
Absolutely. Like I know I have very, very strong views on the managed approach, that much is clear. But if I was to sit down and the whole of the Holbeck community said to me, do you know what, we want it to stay, then I have to sit up and figure out a way to talk to them and see what the best way forward is. Obviously, as an independent, if I was to win, there is just me. So the party line is me and the Save Our Beeston and Holbeck, who are lifelong Beeston and Holbeck residents. They're very, very passionate. Having been out and about with them, they know everyone's talking to them, and I feel like they really know the heart of that community. So I genuinely believe they would always put that heart of the community first, and obviously being part of that party, it's very much about that for us.
Perfect. Rebecca.
That's part of the reason why I decided to join the Green Party, because at a local level, you're very much encouraged to form your own kind of party. So in South Leeds, you've got a really, really good team. The reason why we're standing is because we're passionate about the place that we live in and the people that live here. So that's the whole reason why I'm here tonight, is because of the people that live in the community.
Okay, we have quite a long question now. So are we ready? Leeds City Council have put forward plans to barricade the streets of Beeston by establishing 5 separate zones with no interconnectivity between each. That would block cars, police vehicles, ambulances, fire and rescue vehicles, waste collection vehicles and delivery vehicles. They say that this is to create a safer environment. Given that as a result of a Freedom of Information request, it transpires in 5 years from 2015 to 2020 within the proposed blockade area bounded by Crossflats Park, Beeston Road, Old Lane and Dewsbury Road, only 1 pedestrian was seriously injured, and that was by running into the side of a moving car, and only 2 cyclists and 4 pedestrians were slightly injured. Do the candidates not think that this response is both excessive, unnecessary, and a waste of money? And I really hope you heard that, because I don't want to do that 3 times. Okay, Rebecca, do you want to go first?
It'll be a really short one because I do think that it's excessive, unnecessary and a waste of money. I kind of get the theory behind it, but I just don't think the plan that I saw would work well in Beeston at all. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Okay, go Ha.
This muting and unmuting, I hate it. Right, I wasn't expecting that answer from Becky. You know, the thing is, you say, as somebody who lives in one of the proposed, if you like, proposed areas and so on, I totally understand and appreciate the concerns of the people, which is the reason why. And by the way, let me also just reiterate the fact as well that before this plan was actually put forward, you know, the police, the fire ambulance, the refuse and so on were consulted. So people who think they weren't consulted, you know, they were consulted by Leeds City Council. However, if you remember, I was one of the people who actually hosted a Zoom community, if you like, feedback session as well with the residents, and around 50 to 60, right, about 55 residents actually attended that meeting. Just so we were listening, and we are listening to the residents. It's the language, blockades and, you know, segregation and all that kind of thing is a very, very negative language. I think the issue is, you know, at the moment, I receive calls and I receive emails and casework on a weekly, daily and monthly basis where people are complaining about roads and issues associated with speeds, racing cars, and so on and so forth. The worst thing we can do in our area and in our neighborhoods is to do nothing. Okay, if we do nothing, and I really object to one of the comments that you read from whoever wrote that comment, is that only 4 people were injured. You know, we should have 0 tolerance when it comes to, you know, people being injured or people, you know, God forbid, you know, losing lives and so on. So the safety of people is of paramount importance to us, of children and families and so on. I use these roads on a daily basis. My wife uses these roads on a daily basis, dropping our kids, picking our kids back from school, shopping and so on and so forth, and going to work. Now, how this worked was that a proposal was put forward. People were being consulted. We had the feedback from people, and guess what? You know, Andrew, Angela, and my colleagues are my witness that we really kind of fought our corner, and that is our corner being the residents. Andrew lives in Beeston, Angela lives in Beeston, 2 streets from me and so on. So we know exactly what the issues are. We spoke to the department and so on, and we actually made the officers, you know, to make sure that they were, you know, the residents were consulted. After the consultation and all that, and let's not forget, this is an ongoing consultation. So even after the consultation of the residents, if you like, some of the measures you know, do take place, you know, it's an ongoing, if you like, trial as well. So it doesn't mean that if some roads have speed calming measures or whatever you, that doesn't mean they're permanent. So they can be changed. They will be changed in consultation with the people. Residents are the bosses. They will decide what's good for them. But at the same token, what we cannot do and shouldn't do, to be honest, is leave the things as they are. Because at the moment, we've got a lot of issue on our roads, and we cannot have speeding cars in the way things are at the moment. Also, we have civil enforcement officers, PCSOs, and so on as well, who deal with the other issues, such as issues with parking and so on and whatever as well. So the issues are there. We need to deal with them, but we need to deal with them pragmatically. Criticizing something is great, but let's criticize and let's be critique of these kind of things in a positive, proactive way. We're looking at solutions together rather than opposing and being negative, about these kind of things. But finally, I would say, residents are the bosses. We will be listening to the residents. You will be deciding. I will be deciding, and my colleagues, because we all live in Beeston. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Goha. I think I think the questions are usually going to be something that requires an answer, something that's going wrong. So the questions are fair, but I think your answer was very good at the same time. Thank you. Francesca.
I just feel like I'm repeating myself about Becky, but yeah, I'm the same. I think it's both excessive, unnecessary, and a waste of money. If you look at what's been happening in London, the High Court has ruled there that they aren't illegal. So if it's been happening in London that they're illegal, then why are we continuing in Beeston? I did find it slightly ironic when Goha, when you said that it was just a trial and we would be reviewing it because the managed approach was a trial 7 years ago and we're still here 7 years later. But I'm also conscious that you mentioned about the PCSOs managing the area, and I just wondered, I don't know if we can go back to Goha, how that's going to continue when Leeds and Labour are cutting 37 in the near future. So I just wondered how everything's going to get done when we're 37 PCSOs down, and how that's going to work. But no, in answer to that question, I find that they are excessive, unnecessary, and a waste of money.
I think what we'll do, Francesca, is we'll add that question. If you put that question in the chat for me, and we'll do it before we go. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine.
Okay, I'm going to read this next question, but I'm not going to read the whole thing because we did want the questions to target all 3 candidates and not just one. So, as a resident of Holbeck for over 40 years, I can see the slow gentrification of the area and waste of taxpayers' money. Examples given: cycle lanes, managed approach. Could you show us what clear actions you will take to benefit our residents? And I'm going to stop the question there. Francesca.
Sorry, I was just typing my question.
Sorry.
It's all right. Which one was it? Sorry, that you just read to me.
Okay, as a resident of Holbeck for over 40 years, I can see the slow gentrification of the area and a waste of taxpayers' money. For example, cycle lanes and the managed approach. Could you show us what clear actions will benefit our residents? And I'm putting the question there.
Okay, obviously one of the things we've looked into is the section S106 money that's generated by new developments in the area and how those have been spent. Unfortunately, when you look at the list, it obviously naturally feels like it's a bit of a waste of money, and that actually some of those could have been used better to deal with the potholes and things like that. I mean, for argument's sake, what have we got here? We've got the money that was meant, so we got £276,000 from the new police station that was built on Ellen Road. £23,000 of that was spent on Metro cards. You had Ellen Road Leeds United, 313,000. Of that, £71,331 was spent on Ellen Road Park and Ride, which is obviously benefiting the city, but how much that's necessarily benefiting the community that money is supposed to serve, I'm not too sure. So for me, I would want much more accountability of where this money is going and how we can use it to benefit that community, rather than it being spent on a much wider projects across Leeds when that money should have been earmarked for our community. So yeah, that's how I would try and ensure that things like that are important to our residents is where we can fund that from.
Thank you, Francesca. Goha, would you like to go next?
Sorry, unmuting myself there. Could you just repeat that question again, please?
So the question is, as a resident of Holbeck for over 40 years, I can see the slow gentrification of the area and a waste of taxpayers' money. For example, the cycle lane and managed approach. Could you show us what clear actions will benefit our residents?
Well, Holbeck is very close to our hearts, all three of us. I mean, when it comes to Slung Low, when it comes to Holbeck Together, when it comes to the park, Holbeck Moor Park, when it comes to the churches and so on. I mean, we have already invested, a lot. In fact, one of the things that, the hub, if you like, during COVID and so on, was Slung Low for us. So Holbeck, acted as a hub in this very important time. So we will be investing a lot of money for future as well, whether it be Section 106 money or other monies, because hopefully when new construction is happening, whether it be manual approach housing, affordable housing for people, whether it be, if you like, we're putting some electricity sockets and stuff like that for fairs and so on to happen in the Holbeck Moor Park, whether it be, the Mugger, lightings of the Mugger, changing the street name, not changing the street names, but changing the street, if you like, signs, and refurbishing them, whether it be the hub at the recreations in terms of the priority neighborhood and so on. So a lot of investment has already happened, but the future is bright for Holbeck, and more money is being invested, and we will invest more money. There's a lot of some very exciting things happening as well, whether it be investing into the new British Library offices and so on that are coming to Holbeck and so on. So there's a lot of things happening in Holbeck already, and there will be a lot of things happening in future. So I'm really, really positive about Holbeck, about the future of Holbeck, and about the future of our whole ward, in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just do a quick check and make sure no other candidates popped in? No. Okay, Rebecca.
Oh yeah, right. You don't need to repeat it. I've been reading it. Yeah, one of my main ethoses, if I were to be elected, is to be transparent with the money that we get or don't get. I believe that we should have the choice about how it's spent and on what. I feel like there is a slow gentrification going on in Holbeck. At the same time, parts of it are being left behind, and maybe the services that we have in the area are up to standard for the people that are living there, and then they feel like before you know it, overnight they're going to be thrust into something that isn't what it was. Sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but yeah, I've seen it happen in other parts of Leeds with Worklaver TV Harrison ground being sold off, and there were a line at the bottom of the Evening Post report about it where some spokesperson for Leeds City Council said that there will be building new sports facilities in North Leeds, somewhere near actual Workley. So that's happening across the board. That's not something that's unique to Holbeck, and it's something that I believe us, the taxpayers, need to be lobbying the council about. We should be saying, look, you're raising all this cash off the area that we live in, and we're not seeing any of the benefits of it. So yeah.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, this is a quick fire question. Go ahead. So being a councillor requires a huge amount of time, energy and patience. How much time can you give, and how would you fit day and evening meetings around your other commitments? Go ahead, you can go first. Quick answers on this one.
Thank you, Christine. I think, I am a full-time councillor. I resigned from a very good job months before I became the councillor to become a full-time councillor. Our ward is very fortunate to have 3 full-time local councillors, Labour local councillors. And I intend to work 100%, with the people, which I do. I am more active, believe you me, your councillors, all three of us, including myself, are more active than a lot of councillors in the city, believe you me. 100%, we give our time to our communities, our community groups, our community, if you like, events and so on. We literally, get our hands, whether it be dirty, whether it be cleaning the streets, whether it be, beautification of our area, whether it be planting trees, or whether it be, whatever it be, whether it be the galas, celebrations and so on, whether it be delivering food to people and so on. We're always there. We're part of this community, and 100%. So I am your full-time councillor. I intend to be a full-time councillor, and I will give all my time to you. But then again, we do have some, we do have meetings, we do have, various scrutiny boards and so on. I'm also on the fire authority currently, so I have to, divide my time doing other bits and bobs as well, representing our areas. But, our area is the biggest priority to me, and it will remain the biggest priority, is our residents and the benefits of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Goha. Francesca?
Yeah, I obviously have put in my leaflet, I am very lucky to have a very understanding senior leadership team behind me in my day job. And we have already sat down and had a discussion, and I obviously would go part-time. I'm honest about the fact that I would like to keep some element of my current job, mainly because I love what I do, and I love how much they are making a difference across South Leeds, and I actually want to be really a part of that still. So I'm very honest in saying that I would go part-time. I can work 7:30, 3:30, so I've got lots of time in the evenings to give, as well as giving 2 or 3 days a week to the role as well, plus weekends. And I have, I don't have family commitments, I don't have children, so my weekends are mine to give to that community much more.
Thank you. Rebecca?
I'm in a really good position at the moment, as I'm a stay-at-home mum with my little boy getting ready to start full-time school in September. So I already do give and dedicate a lot of time to my local community. So yeah, that's something that I'm passionate about, and I'm willing to dedicate that time to. So
Thank you. Okay, next question. If elected, will you attempt to hold accountable departments of planning and the upkeep of the roads? So I think what the question's asking is the roads department, potholes and such, and planning departments, if the public don't agree with something they're doing, would you hold them to account? Rebecca? I forgot.
Yeah, I would. I'd want to hold all departments of the council or any outer agencies that we need to account if we don't think that they're doing a good enough job. And I'm sure that most people will be of that same opinion.
Okay, Francesca?
Yeah, absolutely. I've spent some time out and about in that community, and those potholes are pretty severe. But yeah, I know that there's a lot of issue with particularly fly tipping departments and fencing and dump cars and potholes and people, not things not being following up. And I think it's the community that generally has to push things constantly forward, and I don't think it necessarily should have to be that way. I think it's the responsibility of the councillors that they don't have to wait for that community to come knocking on their door. They should be more proactive. So absolutely, I think it's our job to hold them to account much more.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just to give you an example today, somebody rang me, a resident rang me. They had some issues with their roads. I went to see the resident and went to see the road. It's not very far from Leeds United Football Stadium. I sent an email while I was stood there in front of the resident to highways and all that to find the information. They sent me an information within 25 minutes that road was not, it didn't belong to Leeds City Council. So I gave the answer to the resident, as much as he didn't like the answer, but the problem was it was a private land that we couldn't repair, and some of their neighbors came out who actually had spent their own money to patch up that road. So what I'm saying is, we're dealing with it on a daily basis. I deal with hundreds of these kind of cases on a monthly basis, whether it be potholes, whether it be repairs and all that. And you can see what we're doing, whether it be South Leeds, whether it be across Flats Avenue and all the areas which we're all familiar with because we live locally. And these are the issues that we deal with on a local basis. And yes, we do hold them accountable, but let me just praise some of the people as well. I mean, we're very critical about people and so on, but let's not forget these officers and people who are working there, humans like us as well. We have really good relationship with those people. They listen to us. They make sure, they help our residents wherever they can, wherever possibly they can. I really actually am thankful to them because, to be honest, I do bother them a lot, when it comes to our roads and our potholes and so on. And they're always very positive, always very prompt. But yes, if there's anything, as I said, we are servants to the people. I work for the residents of our ward. I am not a worker for Leeds City Council. I work for our residents. So I take pride in working and fighting, from the angle of our residents all the time and keeping the interest of our residents as a priority. So we do that every day, and we'll continue doing that every day. But yet, at the same token, maintaining a good relationship with all these departments that we deliver efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you, Goha. Okay, we're going back to the managed zone again. So I'm going to read this one out. So regarding the managed approach, the issues are much deeper. Shutting it down will, I believe, push the issue underground and potentially cause additional community problems. If that was to happen, how would you make sure it didn't, or how would you prevent that happening? So we're imagining the zone has been closed, and how we're going to prevent the antisocial issues swamping the streets even more so. And I'll go to Rebecca first, then Francesca.
Yeah, well, I don't think it should be shut down overnight, and I do sort of imagine in my mind that the council overall have a plan that this isn't going to be an infinite thing. I think Goha said it's constantly being looked at and reviewed. So I believe the process has to be a slow one anyway, because like I touched on earlier, we've enabled it to happen for so long. We can't just now pull the rug from under everybody's feet. We have to put processes in place to ensure that if it were to be shut down, if that's what happens, that it's not that these people are just left overnight with all these new problems that come. It has to be like I say, with a panel of people all working together.
Thank you, Francesca.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I said, obviously I am very much on a ticket that the managed approach should end. However, as I said at the beginning, it needs a very thought out exit strategy. And that's partly what I want to do is get people around a table and have those discussions. But I think a very well thought out that, you've at the moment, West Yorkshire Police are a strategic partner. So there's no reason that if the managed approach was to have an exit strategy, they can. And having talked to individuals like the Holbeck Angels that walk the streets, that punters already have sussed out that there are 3 shift patterns and 2 are run by police, 1 by PCSOs, and they know the shift patterns and they know when the PCSOs are on, and they know that they can get away with a lot more, which obviously is showing us that we need a bigger police presence. So I think if we did shut down the managed approach, we have to accept that PCSOs, as great as they are, we need a much, much, much stronger police presence. And as I said, I did a lightning to Iraq. We can't just pull out. We have to absolutely have a valid plan. And what my worry is that it's become too big to contain, and no one knows actually how to develop an exit strategy. And that's why we have to do it sooner rather than later, because it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Like the Independence report says, you've gone from 50 odd street workers to 200. It's growing all the time, and if we're not careful, we're going to lose control of it even more if we don't act quite quickly and quite soon on this. But I like people have said, like, go hard, they want to get people around the table, and I am quite disappointed that Labour and the ward councillors have refused Ruth Gorse, not me in particular, but any member of Ruth Gorse, to sit around that table and have a voice. So at the moment, that's quite disappointing, that they are cutting out voices that don't necessarily agree with them. And I think that's quite important, that moving forward, we need all voices around the table.
Thank you. I think again, I would say this is an issue that needs a lot longer time to discuss. We cannot have questions just and answers and point scoring and making points and saying, well, I've given the answer and all that. If that was the case, after investing nearly a year into the listening well. Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Hang on, Kaylee.
Sorry.
It's okay, Kaylee. It's all right. Kaylee unmuted herself by accident. Go on.
Yeah, no problems. But at the moment, the thing is, there's no silver bullet to this issue. Switching on and off doesn't work in terms of the approach. So if somebody says that ending the managed approach is the silver bullet and the quick answer, well, I'm sorry to disagree. It's wrong. It wouldn't happen overnight. It doesn't just switch off and suddenly all the people just disappear from the area. So what we need to do is we need to have a strategy and a plan and work together with all the agencies, making sure that we have clear exit strategy for the prostitutes as well, which some organizations are already working. That these women are rehabilitated and so on. And also, we need to sit down together, and look at the long-term, if you like, solutions of of this area, rather than in this particular issue, rather than if you like, jiffy answers to stuff like that. So we need to listen to the community wisdom, to the collective wisdom of the community. Sit down together, listen to the experts, what they have to say, the police. The organizations that are working with the women, the organizations that are engaging, with the residents and so on. So it's if you like, it's not a simple solution to that. But yes, we need to sit down together, and we'll continue to listen to the community, making it happen. But let me just say one more thing. For the past year, the zone has been closed. So the answer, you've got the answer. You've got the answer. If you think that zone has been officially closed, then look at the situation now. I'll leave that with the residents, to answer that question. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, stay unmuted because I'm going to come back to you first. Right, yep. So we've just gone past the hour and we've only got a few more questions left. So thanks for hanging on this long. So, if elected, would you attempt to stop the cutting down of established trees? Because as you know, it takes 30 plus years for a tree to grow to its full benefit. That would be benefit to air quality and homes for small mammals, birds, bats and insects. The small saplings that have been planted now by Leeds City Council do not compensate for the long time that the small saplings that have been planted in now do not replace the large trees that have been taken down in benefits. So would you stop any further established trees being cut down is the question.
Well, we have always, all three of us and how passionate we are about trees and so on, and more plantation and what have you. And we are definitely against, the cutting of established trees. There are some instances where, for example, if there's issues with the trees and their health and so on, sometimes we have to lose some trees and what have you. But in terms of planting new saplings, we had a meeting even today with the creation of woodlands and so on. We are in constant touch with them. I planted myself 46 trees, plants myself on Beggars Hill, when we were doing it, in November. So we're all up for planting more and more trees. But yes, the lessons are to be learned. I mean, we have actually advised and spoken to the people to plant more and more, not small saplings, because the survival rate of the sapling is a lot, if you like, a lot less than maybe bit established kind of plants and so on. So they are listening to us. And let's not forget, they're planting hundreds of thousands of trees over the next 25 years. So, we are in favor of plantation of more and more trees and making our area and our city greener and more, if you like, environmentally friendly. In terms of cutting the trees, we'll always be against cutting grown trees and mature trees unless there is a valid reason to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Francesca, trees.
Yes, absolutely. In my day job at the moment, we are currently rewilding huge parts of our land at our academies to create tiny forests. This was actually a project that I have put to this SLT after reading about the ASOS billionaire who is completely rewilding most of Scotland, and how important it is for children. And we've also worked on a project recently where to offset one household boiler, you need 137 trees to offset a boiler for a year. In order to offset the carbon emissions over the course of a year, you need to plant 6 billion extra trees a year. So us cutting down any amount of trees is wrong. It's impossible unless they are damaged and are of risk to individuals. They should be left. There is absolutely no reason that we should be cutting huge trees down or healthy trees. We have a responsibility to our next generation, and we need to set an example. And we should be creating. We as a community, as a council, should be following the lead. And the tiny forest projects are free, and there's absolutely no reason. You need the size of a tennis court, and you can create your own mini forests. And it's effectively, they'll help you fundraise, and it's free. And that's the kind of initiatives that I think our community needs moving forward. And school projects and everything like that can get involved that teach those important environmental aspects. So yeah, absolutely, I would be doing everything I could to protect those trees.
Thank you. Rebecca, I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, it'd be really weird if I said nothing.
It would be weird.
So, yeah, obviously nature is probably one of my big passions. Gohan knows this because I've been speaking to him a lot about it over the last couple of weeks. So I'm really passionate about rewilding as well. So that made me really giddy with listening to Francesca talk about the projects that we're doing at the Academies Trust. So that's good to know. Yeah, I've commented about this on Facebook before about the benefit of an established tree, and I'd be really interested to know more about tree species and things that are being planted currently. It's something that I've touched lightly upon, but over the next sort of 12 months, I'd really like to get stuck into. And I think we can't stop every tree being cut down. There are going to be issues. I've seen it myself walking around places where they become causing damage to footpaths and walls, so structural issues. And unfortunately we have to look at that and sort of take those things on board when we look at new planting schemes, learn from past mistakes about, I've had to cut down a tree before because it was planted too close to my house when it was built, obviously with no sort of future foresight that it's going to grow massive and impact the structure of my house and everybody's power lines. So I think that's something that I feel needs a lot more collaboration from a lot more people, and probably a few experts chucked in the mix as well.
Thank you. Okay, can I just ask, we don't put any more questions in the chat now because I think we've got enough, unless there's anything really pressing that you want to ask. Okay, next question. When COVID will allow and fans return to Ellen Road to watch the football, the parking on our residential streets will be worse than ever. The new cycle highway has now stripped Ellen Road of hundreds of parking spaces, which will now just add to that problem. Leeds United car parks are now a police station and a park and ride. On a match day, it becomes impossible to leave my street in my car. What do you propose to ease the strain on residents? Now, I believe that question comes from somebody that lives in Holbeck, but that problem is also prolific in Cottingley and Beeston. So, Francesca, if you want to go first.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, like I've mentioned, having been out in those communities, that some of those cycle lanes are rather excessive when they are wider than the road. But I mean, it's very difficult because it's, for me, the natural thing is obviously parking permits, so that residents have access to parking permits, and those without parking permits simply get tickets, which would obviously soon stop them parking there more than once. And I think that is the only solution if they're going to continue to sell off assets of car parks. We've gone from car parking capacity of 4,300 cars to 2,700 cars. So there's 1,600 cars instantly there that are displaced and will be out in that community. Sorry, my dog's snoring at me. So yeah, I think that is an option that, with community consultation, is something that potentially we might have to look at to ensure that residents can park outside their homes. But I certainly would try and fight to ensure that no more land is certainly sold off, because I think the problem's just going to get worse and worse, especially now they're in the Premier League. So yeah, I think it would have to be a community consultation as to what works best for the community. But certainly things like parking permits that are obviously free to the residents is something that we may have to consider.
Thank you. Rebecca?
So this is something I've given a lot of thought to, actually, as a Leeds fan and also as a resident of Beeston. So I know from when fans were allowed in the stadium, there was a couple of I don't know whether to call them trial days, with a few of the park and ride schemes in Leeds where they were offering sort of out of Beeston. I can't remember which park and ride scheme it was, but you could park up and it was £3 for the ticket to Ellen Road and then back to your car after the game. I know that on those days it reduced parking. But then what happened was, after those sort of trial days ended, the price went up, and then it was like, well, I don't want to pay a tenner to get to Ellen Road when I've, a lot of fans do travel from out of Leeds. When I were a kid going to Ellen Road in the 90s, all the bus stops used to be packed before and after games. So that, again, is that because of the cost of a family who might already be paying, £600 each a year for a season ticket, then to be paying, £5 each on the bus as well as your food and drink that day. I do think there needs to be some input from Leeds United themselves here. They make a lot of money off the fact that fans go to every game, not at the moment, but when we are packed to full capacity, there's a lot of money on the gates there. So I do think they need to maybe look at some incentives for fans to leave the cars at home, whether that be money off or some bits of merchandise, because I've seen other schemes in other areas where those kind of things do actually work. So that's something that I'd look to liaise with Leeds United and the council and West Yorkshire Police with, because it is an issue. Another quick point on that as well. I know it might not be to everybody's favour, and I think we might have all had leaflets through the door about renting out your parking space to match day. I do actually know that a lot of fans look to those kind of schemes to ensure safe parking while they're at the games, because that's also become an issue, is a lot of thefts from cars that are parked up sort of out of residential areas, which is why people favour to choose near houses, because they're looked over. So I think same again with that, it needs people to sit down around a table and look to find a solution that works sort of for everybody, because we don't want to lose the fact that we've got this great establishment of Ellen Road in Beeston. We're very lucky to have that, and the boost to the economy that it brings on match days for our local pubs and shops, and the takeaways and stuff like that. So I think that needs more from the people like Leeds United with sort of the money and the means to do something about it.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Christine. It's one of those things, where there's willingness to find solutions, we can do it together. And thank you for for some good thoughts there, Becky, as well, and Frankie. We need to sit down together after the elections. I think, regardless of the results, if we want these issues to be resolved. I think what is really important that we need to understand is the culture. It's become a bit of a culture when it comes to coming into Beeston, and Beeston is not, or the Ellen Road is not an exclusive, if you like, club or football stadium, which is next to the residential area and so on. There's lots of other examples around the country where there's lots of stadia next to the residential area, including one, for example, Headingley Stadium, which is again next to residential areas and so on. So we have already had conversations. Sorry, I'm just having this. Sorry, that's why they took early. So we're already had conversations with Leeds United and some of their officials to be more proactive and to take a lead on that as well in terms of engaging with the fans and so on. If you like, encouraging the culture where people come by buses. So that's where the public, if we have a good transport system into Beeston, a better transport system into Beeston, that would help. And also there's some other out of the box thoughts as well. Probably we'd be looking at the viaduct as one of the options, maybe, for people to come to watch their games and all that. So all sorts of things are there on the table. I mean, yesterday, just to give you an example, yesterday Becky and I worked as a team. There was some issue of dumping medication and all that, and we worked as a team together, and we found the solution within a couple of hours. Under 3 hours, the whole place was cleared. So we need to work residents as a team in terms of tackling these issues. So if we work together, we can find the solutions. And again, collective wisdom is of paramount importance. I mean, me alone or your three councillors alone don't have the answers to all the issues that we have. I think we need your support and your input into tackling with these issues as well. And we're always open and eager to listen to your views as well, and then put it to people who can put that in practice. Thank you.
Thanks, go ahead. Don't unmute. I'm going to do Francesca's question from earlier. How do you plan for PCSOs to manage the area when 37 PCSOs are going to be cut? And do you know how they will now be spread out around the city?
First of all, it wasn't just, Leeds was one of the very few city councils who were dealing with, having the PCSOs and so on. So when you say cuts, there's a lot of, I mean, we have lost over £2 billion as the central government grant, to our city. And there are some, and in fact, I was with David Lammy, one of our shadow secretaries today. He came here to Leeds, and I was discussing the same thing with him in terms of cuts, from the central government, and that's where devolution is very, very important. And that's why, Mayor of Yorkshire, one of the pledges, again, I'm not plugging her, but what Tracy made was to have more and more, if you like, adding more and more to the police and so on. So hundreds of new police jobs will be created, to tackle crime, and not just crime in the communities overall. Because at the end of the day, having PCSOs walking in our communities is a deterrent to crime. Sometimes having the presence is all we need, and it deters all the negative elements. So you will see some really positive, if you like, positive changes once we have the mayor elected, and we will work as Leeds City Councillor. We will work together as a team with the newly elected Leeds City Councillor.
Okay.
Newly elected Mayor of West Yorkshire.
So just to clarify, go ahead. The zone is not losing its PCSOs.
Well, we will try our best.
I think that was the ask.
If that was the case, we will fight our best, to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm going to guess Francesca and Rebecca wants a PCSO still to be present in the zone. I'm doing this. Is that right? Yeah, Francesca. Okay. Right, we just have a couple more questions. So, travellers. Given the travellers in Beeston and Holbeck ward are moving from one illegal camp to another, by illegal, this question is highlighting the breaking and entering and then leaving behind a trail of waste. What prevention will you take to stop this happening again and again? Francesca.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as on a national level, the rules were changed in 2013 that actual local governments can take preemptive injunctions that protect vulnerable land in advance of unauthorised encampments. So obviously, I would like to know if, you know, in more detail, if any of this land that is known as, you know, that travellers enter on a regular basis, if we can put those preemptive injunctions on them. And then the minute that they obviously land on that land, there's an injunction out, so there isn't a reason for them to stay any longer, then, you know, it can be moved on there and then on that day. And the reason that this new kind of rules were brought in 2013 was that for councils to get tougher, and actually if travellers on their land, it is now the responsibility that the councils can get tough, and if they're not, it is very much them not upholding the law and not using the law to the full effect to move those travellers on much more quickly. So, you know, if we looked at all the land in Beeston, yes, okay, they're obviously legally breaking in, but if we got injunctions there and then, you know, we could have them removed within 24 hours with a court order. So there's absolutely no reason that they should be on for 5, 6, 10 days using a softly approach to move them on. There are powers out there that the local council can use and should be using to ensure that that land is protected in a much more in a quicker manner, really.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I was there yesterday. I was at Middleton Park speaking to some of the travellers yesterday. A couple of days before that, I was, you know, near the new Beeston Village Community Centre talking to the travellers there. I've been talking to the travellers and gypsy liaison officer from the council and with the police and all that. I mean, we are constantly in touch. Let's not forget that these people are fellow humans, okay? And they come to these areas and so on. Yes, we have had last year when we had the encampment in Crosslets Park, if you remember, you know, again, I was working really hard with my colleagues and so on as well. And we had the Section 71 implemented and got them out of the park within a few days. We're again asking the police, you know, and the city council to get the eviction notices as soon as possible. But at the end of the day, these are the legislations from the central government and not just from the local government for their, if you like, for the removal and so on. So we need to go by the law and make sure that if and when they are here, you know, make sure that they abide by the law and they don't create unnecessary issues with the locals or disruption and so on. I mean, I went there yesterday myself and spoke to a few people. Well, you're not going to believe something. You know, people were actually, there was a lot of people who were saying lots of bricks and lots of rubble was dumped by the travellers, whereas I've just spoken to some of the people at the council as well, and it turned out that some people have actually put that rubble there and they were not the travellers themselves. So there's a lot of things that we need addressing, but at the same token, you know, we need to understand that you know, the council or the police is not sitting there idle. They go there every day to have a word with them, and we'll make sure and we'll try our best, you know, as soon as the eviction notice is there, you know, following the law of the land, as soon as the eviction notice is there, we'll make sure that the travellers vacate the site and we clean the site and make it safe for everybody as well.
Thank you, go ahead. Rebecca.
So I do believe that everybody should have the right to live how they choose to live, as long as it's not to the detriment of other people. You know, we all deserve the right to a bit of freedom and to be happy and to do what we choose, as long as that's not impacting everyone's lives. And my colleague Ed made a few good points in a live video he did down at Hunslet Moor. I mean, I don't have a solution fully to what's happening, and it's across South Leeds. It is an issue. The points Ed made about across Leeds as a whole, is it an idea for the council to sit down with the traveller community and potentially pinpoint some sites where you can open them up for people to camp out on short term, and they pay a bond for being on that land, and that bond covers the cost of waste removal and toilet facilities, covers the maintenance of that land when it's not in use. You know, maybe that's a solution we can look at. It's not a problem that's unique for South Leeds either, because the traveller community travel, and that's what they do. But yeah, again, it's all about you know, I think maybe we need a better understanding of the way that they live, and they need a better understanding of the way that we live, and we can try and find some harmony in the middle ground. You know, maybe they don't know that it pisses us all off when they dump stuff or whatever. You know, that might just not be a thought that comes into the mind. Maybe if we say that, that might change. You know, maybe they don't want to upset people. They have, from speaking to travellers, it bothers them that people get the back up about them. They feel discriminated against because the travellers, they don't realise a lot of the time it's because of the issues that come with the illegal encampments. So maybe that's, you know, another barrier that we need to try and break down. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you. Okay, this is the last question of the night. So we're ready. Last one. So mental health is a huge issue across the city, and particularly in the most deprived wards. So as you councillors or prospective councillors will know, we're in the 10% most deprived areas in England. There have been lots of issues that have come to the front because of the pandemic that existed before also. Do you have any ideas of how to address any of these issues? And schools need to be involved. So Francesca, how can you help mental health, and especially with children?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can say from our perspective within our schools, every one of our schools has its own counsellor. Most of them have counsellors on a full-time basis, and those working with Place to Be, which obviously offer it out to both staff and parents. You know, we are fully aware of the need for that. You know, where I'm based at the Stephen Longfellow Academy, we have several counsellors, and a lot of those children are accessing therapeutic services on a much more regular basis because they can't be in mainstream education and need that further support. And I think there's an absolute play. You know, I can't speak for maintained schools on an A level, but I am pretty certain that there will be services that they can access. I actually think there's a particular gap in your preschool children that it might sound unusual to think that they might need to access it, but if you think about those children have missed key skills and socialization, and that will have a huge knock-on effect. And actually at the moment there's very few, if any, services. I know of particular stories where children have seen siblings die, and because they're not in looked after care, they can't access any services because CAMs only start from the age of 7. So I think in particular we need to look at that area of your, not necessarily your not, but certainly once the 2 to 5 before they enter reception. I think there's particular lot of work to do around that area in that community, and I think that links in very much to the family aspect, you know, and if I was to be elected, I would actively encourage the schools to use someone like Place to Be, and obviously they have experience of extending that out. But I think moving forward that the mental health is going to be absolutely massive, but it would be very much around, you know, surgeries and encouraging GPs and people to access those services. But again, like we've heard, that it is on a national level, and you know it will be backed up across the country. So as much as like local councillors can get involved, if you know, we've heard that waiting lists are going to be the biggest they've ever been, and if there isn't the number of councillors out there to access that services, it is going to be difficult. But I think certainly schools have a huge part to play, and I know within our trust in particular, I know that's not as relevant for the ward, but you know, we have a lot of strategic partners like the Coburn Academy Trust that I'm certain that they will have that same level of services for children.
Thank you, Francesca. Rebecca, oh, you ready?
I was just telling my husband to stop turning all lights off. I keep going in dark. Yeah.
Okay, Rebecca. Mental health, particularly children's mental health.
Yeah, it's something I'm really passionate about. I've struggled a lot myself over the years with my mental health. I still do. You know, I think particularly over the last 12 months, it's become at the forefront of everybody's mind, so to speak. You know, I've got friends that have sort of never struggled and, you know, are struggling now. Young people's mental health is one of my great passions in life, and, you know, I do a lot of studying around children in nature and the effects that has. I know that we've got a lot of local charities and services that are doing really, really great work in the community already. I'd love to increase the funding that they get to expand the services. I'm really passionate about empowering local people. So I'd like those people to be able to reach out and grow bigger, rather than constantly relying on, you know, like our sort of like National Health Service. It's under a lot of strain. So I feel like we can ease a bit of that burden. I've, you know, sorry, I lost my chain of thought then. I've also experienced things from the side of like adults' mental health, particularly, like I say, with me and my husband. My husband's a veteran. I've got a lot of experience around that field. One of the things that I'm looking into at the moment is sort of the setup of mental health hubs in every ward across Leeds, where people can go to, and all the information you need is in a central place. You know, I found it a minefield when I first started looking for help. That process is getting easier as time goes on, but we also know that over the next 5 years, these services are going to really be pushed to the limits. So that's a concentrated effort from everybody, I think, to start. And I liked what Francesca was saying about, particularly in primary schools. I believe funding should be made available, even if it's 1 day a week, where they do, you know, mindfulness and they learn about what anxiety is. I didn't know what anxiety was when I was a child, but I know as an adult that I suffered with it. So I think that's really important to sort of to push nationally as well as locally.
Yeah. Thank you, Rebecca. Go Ha. Mental health.
Mental health is very, very important and very close to our heart, as you, some of you might know. I've been governor at some of the schools and so on previously, and whatever as well. So I know firsthand some of the issues that we face, and also for the Inner South Community Committee, I'm the champion for adult social services and health as well. So. You know, we're already aware of the issues that will be surrounding us. I mean, let's not forget, after post-COVID world is going to be a different world when we, you know, around September, hopefully, you know, when kids go back to school. I mean, this generation has lost a full year to this pandemic in a way, in terms of social interaction and so on, in terms of staying in and whatever you. It's impacted the adults, it's impacted the elderly, it's impacted the children, it's impacted us all in various ways, shapes and forms. So we're already in discussion with our key partners. We've done a lot of work with the clusters within the city, and we're working with the schools, children and families, and we continue to do that as well. In terms of Leeds as a city, you know, Leeds is a city of compassion. Leeds is a child-friendly city, a family-friendly city, and we wish that you know, some of the ambitions that we've got continue, and not only continue, we need to build on the work. But let's not forget, there's a lot of challenges for us, you know, that we will be facing come September, and one of the challenges is going to be the health. Mental health issue, and let's not just think that we're not, you know, preparing ourselves. We are preparing well. We're trying our best to tackle these issues and many other issues as well, but not just for the kids alone, but also for all of us, including the adults and children and all that, especially living in a city where loneliness, isolation, deprivation and all other issues are, you know, there's a lot of problems to deal with, and people have been impacted. And there's lots of other issues, you know, impacting the families as well, whether it be universal credit, and due to universal credit, lots of financial issues and burdens and all that, you know, going to food banks and stuff like that. There's a lot of proud people, you know, who have been through a lot of hardships. And because I've delivered packages and all that to people, I know, you know, there's a lot of people who are not feeling well. you know, in terms of their mental health as well, because they've never dealt with anything like that. Bereavements, you know, losing people in your family, losing friends, and not just that, you know, not going to school and so on, the social skills, if you like. So there's a lot of things to work on, but together we will do it together.
Thank you, Goha. And I think that is the last question of the night. Thank you to the candidates that turned up and answering the questions so coherently. Thank you to everybody that joined us for behaving, first of all, and making this so much easier for me and Linda. I really appreciate that. So this was hosted. You are.
Thank you, Christine, for taking
We did all right. We did all right. So this was hosted by South Leeds Life. You can become a subscriber if you look on the website. If you own a business, you can sponsor us. And don't forget to always like us on Facebook. And on that note, you can all go and update your statuses, good or bad. And thank you for coming. If you all want to go to the bottom and press leave.
Thank you. Good night,
The hustings
everyone.
for the next area will be tomorrow and the day after. Bye
Thank
bye.
you, Christine, Linda, and everybody.
See
Thank
you
you all.
later.
Bye-bye. Good night. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you later, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Well done, Christine. Thank you.
See you later.
I'll leave you. Wait for Bill.
Goodbye. I
Wait for
can't
Bill.
do that.
Good job.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Lee, I am going to send your email now to Goha. I apologise I didn't have time for that question.
It's like Walton's, isn't it? Night all. Night,
See you later. See ya. Brady Bunch. See ya. Bye. Okay, there's just history. Where's Jeremy gone? Oh, wait a minute. Let me press stop record.